Welcome to our show. Our show is called Goose in the Wild, and I'm Goose. And our first episode, we dealt with bird dogs. And we'd like to thank Cody Bradford for being here. He did a great job educating the people on bird dogs, how to train them and things like that. We've got another great guest today, one of my good buddies, one of my good baseball buddies. That's Darrell Pruitt. We'd like to welcome him to the show right now. There he is, good-looking guy. Now, I'm going to give you a brief introduction to Darrell. He played 6 years in the minor leagues. He had a lifetime batting average of about 280. He batted off the likes of Randy, the Big Unit Johnson. And he said when he batted off him, he usually went 1 for 3. And he played with guys, Greg Maddox, Tommy Glavine.
Yeah, faced him.
And then Frank the Big Hurt Thomas,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So we've got a guy here tonight that's had some experience with minor league ball. And to make it that far, you've got to have some talents like run like the wind, got to have a good arm, got to be able to bat, you got to be able to hit for average and hit for power, and then you got to be able to field. You got to be able to go and get it. And Darrell can do all those things. So we'd like to welcome you to the show tonight. People are probably thinking we're going to be talking baseball, but guess what? We're not. So we're going to give up this stick for this stick. Yeah, right there. Now, that's a fishing rod. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to put a plug in for the Spanish Fork Parks and Recreation Department. They've got a new program. I guess it's only been out just a couple of years or so. It's called the Youth Urban Fishing Program. Right there. Oh, beautiful. Now, if this is something that you'd be interested in, it's going to start on, let me take a look here. It's going to start on April the 12th, and it'll run for 8 weeks. And they told me at the rec office that they need more instructors, and there'll be a t-shirt given out. And let's go to the t-shirt now. Here's the front of the t-shirt, right there. And let's flip it on the back. Oh, that's a good looking shirt, Spanish Fork Urban Fishing. Got a good looking fish on the back. Yeah, so if you're interested in something like that, it'd be a good idea if you call the Spanish Fork Parks and Recreation office, and they can give you more info about this Youth Urban Fishing Program. But I told them that we'd give them a plug today. All right? So we're going to go over here to the lake and talk fishing. Now, we're going to go over here to Darrell. I've been wanting to ask him this question. We shot some footage the other day, and we're not going to tell you where we shot it, but I think the viewers need to know how you went from playing baseball to fishing. How did you get started?
Well, Goose, when I was probably 6, 7, 8 years old, I don't remember the exact age, my dad used to take me, my brother, and my sister out to Strawberry Reservoir or Schofield, or he'd just take us wherever he decided to take us, and he took us fishing, and I kind of learned that way how to fish, and he'd teach us how to clean fish, teach us how to bait the hook, and teach us how to cast, and it was fun, but I at first wasn't real interested in fishing, but I liked to go because it was fun to get out of Spanish Fork and go up there into the mountains and see the beautiful lakes, and I didn't get real interested in fishing until a little bit later, but I got started mainly because my dad took us out and showed us how to fish.
Okay. Now you mentioned he taught you how to bait the hook.
Uh-huh.
Oh, we got a hodgepodge of night crawlers. If we can have brush. Oh, boy, this is a wiggly one. Now, you mentioned your dad taught you how to put a worm on a hook.
Yeah.
Well, I think we ought to teach the viewers how to put a worm on the hook. We're not really going to hook him because we have no place to cast him. But if you can just kind of show, there might be some kids out there. Girls typically don't like worms. I know my wife don't like worms. What about yours?
No, she doesn't like to bait the hook. I do all that.
Okay, so let's show our viewers how you would hold him and make the first, where you'd pierce him first with the hook.
Okay. Well, on night crawlers, you can always tell where the head and the tail is. So I always grab the head part first, and you want the worm to keep wiggling. So to do that, you want to stick him through the neck area, through the hook, and then you're going to take the rest of his body down through, so it's along the contour of the hook. And so you would have it looking something like this, where the head would be wiggling out in front and the tail would be back behind, down in the water. And then when you throw it out there, it'll be moving in the lake, and that's what attracts the fish, because fish like live bait, and they generally won't eat dead bait. So if it's moving, your chances of catching a fish are real good.
Okay.
So that's how you keep it from moving. If you just throw that worm on there any old way, the worm tends to not move as much.
All right. Beautiful. We're over here at the table now, and we're going to talk about basic lures and baits and things of that nature. And I've been looking at Daryl's tackle box here, and I'm looking at this baby right here. What's this, Daryl?
This is a lure that resembles a frog, and you tie your line up to this part right here, and then what this does in the water is it just kind of goes like that, like a frog, when a frog's swimming in the water. So it'd be kind of like that.
So the fish thinks he's going to get a frog dinner?
The fish thinks he's going to get a frog dinner.
All right, okay. Let's take a look at this baby right here, this shiny one.
Okay, this lure here, fish really like bright colors. If you're fishing with float bait or salmon eggs or anything that's bright.
Oh, this would be salmon eggs, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that'd be salmon eggs.
Show the folks.
They really like that. Trout really love salmon eggs. This particular lure, like I said, the fish are attracted to brightness. And when they see this little baby screaming along in the water down there, they attack it because it's bright and they think it's dinner. So
okay, all right.
That's why they go after that.
Beautiful.
Special lure.
All right, now I notice on your rod over there you've got that, that's called a bubble.
Yes, a bubble.
Okay, here's a bubble here. What do we use a bubble for?
Now the reason why you use the bubble is I use the bubble because I can cast farther. You fill the bubble up with water. What you do is you take the little button here, you push it, and then you take it underneath the water and you fill it up. Now you could fill it up halfway, or you could fill it up all the way. If you fill it up all the way, you got more weight and you're going to be able to cast a lot further. I usually fill it up about all the way to the top. I leave a little bit there, just because I use split shots on each side, and that gives me a little more weight. So that's what the bubble basically is for. Now it also can be used for, you can just put a little bit of water and you can fish from the top. The bubble will stay on top, and your line will go down, and you're fishing from the top. But when you put all the water in, you're fishing from the bottom, and your line's coming up off the bottom of the lake. So it's your preference, and it's how they're hitting or striking.
All right. Now I notice this one says garlic scent. Now, wouldn't garlic scare the fish away?
Actually, the garlic attracts them because of the smell. The smell actually entices them.
Let me give it a smell. Oh, I'm a goose, and no way I'd be attracted to this if this was on corn. Boy, but fish are attracted to that stuff, huh?
Yes,
wow.
They are. And if you notice in there, Goose, there's little sparkles.
Oh, yeah.
Remember what I said about how fish like bright stuff?
All right.
The little sparkles also attract them.
Gotcha.
And the smell entices them to
hit the hook?
Hit the hook and eat it, and you got a fish.
Sounds good to me. All right, now I was looking in here. What are these little lead jobbies?
Okay, well, these things here are split shots. And split shots come in all different sizes. They come real little, medium, big. What I like to do with these is, yeah, I can show you here. Sometimes I won't use the bubble because I don't want to cast as far, so I'll throw my split shots on here like this. Then I'll have my hook down about 2 feet, sometimes 18 inches. It all depends on how they're striking and what lake you're fishing in. You just kind of got to know that by trial and error. But that's what I use the split shots for. If I want to get cast out there, I'll put the heavier ones on there. If I want to just cast a little ways, I'll just put a few on there, or I'll use lighter split shots. And that's what the split shots are used for.
Okay. All right, now I was just noticing this little tool.
All right, this basically is made. It's from Zebco, who also makes fishing poles, and they make reels. It's a weigher. It weighs the fish, and you set the fish right here, and then the fish will take it down, and then it tells you how heavy your fish is. So,
all right.
I usually keep that in there because sometimes I'll catch a 2.5 pound cutthroat. Beautiful.
Now, I know there's a couple of terms. There's a term called bait slingers. Those guys that sling the bait, versus fly throwers. Have you done any fly fishing?
Well, I've done a little bit of fly fishing, and I like it. I guess I'm more of a bait slinger.
Okay.
Yeah, I like to fish off the shore or boat and wait for the fish to hit my bait. But fly fishing is fun also. That's for your more go-getter fishers. They usually have hip waders, and they go out into a river, in the middle of the river, find them a good spot, a good hole, so to speak, where they might think the fish will be. And usually fish are in a stream or in bunches. They stay together. So if you can find a good stream, you're probably going to get a whole family of fish out of there. And so they try to find the hole, and if they hit it a couple of times, and if it doesn't work, nothing's there, they'll move downstream and try another spot that would be a little more productive for them.
Okay.
So fly fishing it's fun in a sense that you're always moving, you're always casting, so you're never at a standstill. Whereas the bait slingers, after they throw their bait out there, they set their pole down and they sit and wait. So it's all your preference, and most people just enjoy all of it.
All right. Now I was thinking that We could maybe address boat fishing, fishing out of a boat. Do you think it's important that they wear a life preserver?
Well, yeah, it's very important. In fact, I think it's mandatory that if you have a boat and you have 2 to 4 fishermen in the boat, it's a law that you have to have 2 life jackets. If there's 2, if there's 4, you have to have 4 life jackets. So you have to have as many life jackets as there are people in the boat. And it's very important because you never know. The weather can change, the tide can change, and there could be an accident where somebody falls out of the boat, and it's going to be a little while before they get help. The life jacket will give them that time for help, and it'll save their lives.
So a life jacket isn't cumbersome?
No.
No. Because some people, like, they think seat belts are cumbersome. Mm-hmm. They're in the way. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to a life jacket, that shouldn't be their attitude.
No, in fact, most serious fishermen or your boaters who have water skis or whatever else they're doing out in the water, they always have life jackets. They should. It's the law.
Okay, so we're telling you people out there that's watching the show, if you're out in the boat, you ought to have one on, right?
That's right.
Okay, now another type of fishing I know a lot of guys do in the winter is ice fishing. Have you ever done any ice fishing?
Oh yes, I did some ice fishing in college. I went to southern Utah and ice fished in Panguitch Lake up there with all my Oregon buddies who played baseball with me. And boy, they were into that fishing. Them Oregon boys really like to fish. We'd go up there and do some ice fishing, and it's interesting. It's so hot from the sun beating down, reflecting off the snow, that you actually can remove your shirt and get a suntan and actually be really hot when you're ice fishing and you're catching fish and you're having a good time. We used to throw the football and the frisbee around while we're fishing, ice fishing. Then we'd take them home and smoke them in their smoker. They love to smoke fish, so it was always a tasty treat.
That reminds me when we would go out goose hunting out in Alberta. We didn't have a permit to get up into Fitzgerald's, the private property. So we would just kind of stand on the east side of the road there and try to catch them as they come out of his fields and do a little pass shooting. Lance and I'd be playing catch, and people would go by and say, "What are those 2 guys doing?" We got our hunting gear on and playing catch. Yeah. So is that basically what you're saying?
Yeah, have fun with it. You're up in the mountains, you're out camping. If you're out hunting, enjoy the outdoors, enjoy it, and have fun with it.
So if they're not biting, I was told by a gal the other day, I said, "What happens if they're not nibbling, you're not getting any bites?" You know what her answer was? This is her answer. As long as there's good treats, it doesn't matter. Do you believe that?
I don't know about that. I guess in her eyes, yes. But what I would do if they're not biting with a particular bait, I would switch my line. I would reset my reel and I would make sure that I'd go to something different like float bait.
Okay.
I could go to
Now what about this little
lures.
What about this little jobber? I know in the footage we showed this, but we didn't zero in on it. We're going to have Bryce come right up on this. This is a grasshopper that Daryl's got in his tackle box. Now, what's the grasshopper doing in your box? You told me you haven't been very successful with it.
No, I haven't. For some reason, I haven't been as successful with the grasshopper. There you go, Goose.
Oh.
It had an extra hook.
Oh, an extra hook?
No, I've tried it a few times, but I'm impatient. I like to see action right off the bat, and after about 5, 6, 7 casts and nothing, I don't stay with it. I move on to something different. So, but it has worked for. I've had friends tell me that it's worked for them, and it just all depends on where you're at, I guess. I guess I haven't been to the right lakes where they like the grasshoppers.
Okay.
But I have had success with lures, different kinds of lures.
Now the one that's got the stink bait, where's that at?
That's the garlic
Oh,
scent.
that's the garlic. You know, this right here, folks, I can't imagine any fish would even give this a second smell. I know I'm a goose, and if this was wrapped on, put on some corn, geese like corn.
Mm-hmm.
If this was put on some corn, I'd be 500 miles away from this stuff. You're actually saying the fish love this?
They do, and I'm going to tell you why. First of all, the scent is a big reason why it attracts them. They like the scent. But as I said earlier in the show, when we were out by the lake, fish like bright colors. You look at this lure here, that's bright colors. They're attracted to bright, shiny colors. Okay? This garlic scent float bait here has little sparkles in it. I don't know if you can see the little sparkles in it, but those little sparkles
Oh, look at that.
really attract the fish. And it's such an attraction that their curiosity always gets the best of them, and they'll go and they like the smell, and they like the sparkles, and this float bait really works. So I've used it. The color attracts them because it's bright green, and but the most of the float bait that I've found real successful is your rainbow.
Oh.
Your rainbow float bait.
Why is that?
Well, I think it's the different colors. It's got orange, green, and yellow in it. And I just, for some reason, that's always been real successful wherever I've gone. So
I know that my wife, I took her fishing this past summer, and she had a blast, but she will not touch the bait. She doesn't like to touch the fish. So what I do is I'll take some, I'll just grab some of this, and you take a little bit in your hand here, and what I like to do, you don't want to get a whole bunch, but you want enough just to cover the hook. Just enough to cover the hook. And what I usually do is make it into a little football. Just because...
Now, I thought you liked baseball.
I do like baseball, but if I shaped it like a baseball, the end of the hook would be sticking out.
Gotcha.
So I shape it like a football.
But you don't you coach football, the DBs?
I've helped with special teams, and I help with the running backs.
All right, down the high school, right?
Yes,
So you have a little football background?
I got a little bit.
Okay.
Yes.
Gotcha.
And that's basically what it looks like. Now you can see the hook's completely covered, and I don't have too much on there, and I got just enough to be able to feel the fish when he starts taking bites of this float bait.
All righty. Okay, now I know typically girls and women don't like to fish. Does your wife like to fish?
oh yeah, she loves to fish. In fact, she's always bugging me. Come on, let's go up to the lakes and go fishing. Let's go up to the lakes. It's always her that wants to go fishing. And I do too. I love to fish too, but I think she enjoys it a lot more than I do. But she won't touch the fish, and she likes to reel them in. She lets me hook them, and she reels them in. She likes that part, but she doesn't like to clean them or touch them. And so, but she does like to fish.
Oh, that reminds me. I was talking to that gal the other day. She says she doesn't mind baiting them, but she really doesn't like, where is that little jobber? You know,
What's that?
you know, when the hook gets stuck.
Oh, okay. You're talking about.
Yeah, she
that?
says she doesn't like to stick her fingers down in the fish's mouth.
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of creeps her out. So I know you've got that, and we talk about it in the footage,
Mm-hmm.
but that's to keep you from...
This item here is fish hook remover. And what this does is sometimes the fish will take your bait and hook and swallow it all the way down their throat so far that if you was to pull on the line and pull that out, you would pull out gills, pull out its insides, and if you wanted to release that fish wouldn't survive. It would die. So what this dauber does here is it allows you to go down into the mouth without harming it, and it's got a little groove in here that you would be able to hook onto the hook, and then you twist it, the line around this part here, the neck of it, and then you could just pull it up, and it removes the hook without injuring the fish. And then you could go ahead and release it if you wanted to, or put it on your stringer and put it in the water and have a healthy fish there still. So yeah, this is used quite frequently because a lot of fish do swallow the bait so far down where you need to use that. I also use I'll use my Leatherman. I can stick that down in there and use the Leatherman also. You can also take needle nose pliers with you. A lot of people carry that in their tackle box. So, you know, there's all kinds of ways you can get in there and get that hook out without injuring the fish.
And without
touching the fish, yes.
Yeah.
This is probably your best tool.
All righty.
So.
All right, and there's another item in here I found interesting. What does this do, Jigger?
This is a stringer. Basically, this is where you put your fish. Now, Goose, I'm going to ask you a question here. Okay?
Uh-oh, he's going to ask me now.
Okay.
Okay.
How many fish do you think that this stringer will hold?
Well, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Probably 6.
6? Okay, that's what most people think. But you actually can double up on these hooks, and you can put 2 fish per hook.
Oh.
Yes, and you have 2 fish there, 2 fish there, 2 fish there, and depending on the size, you may even be able to get 3 on a hook. But I always just do 2, and so you can actually put 12 fish on there.
So now, do you leave it in the water to keep the
You
meat
leave it in the
cool?
water so the fish stay fresh.
Okay.
Okay. And this little hook here is what you hook on the shore, on a branch or a stick, something that's going to make sure it's not the fish aren't going to pull the stringer out into the lake.
Gotcha. Now, in all your experiences of fishing, all your escapades, have you ever had a dangerous experience? One where it's been a little risky?
Oh, very risky. When I used to live in South Dakota, and we would fish Lake Oahe, is what they call it, and we would fish right below the dam. And what you do is there's all kinds of walleye and salmon, and what the boaters do is they're down on that dam down below, and we take the boat all the way to, and they have a line that you can go as far with the boat as you can before it's illegal, because they don't want you getting too close to the dam because of the undercurrents and stuff. So you go all the way up to there, and then you just turn your engine off, and the river just kind of trolls you back down the river. As soon as you throw your line in, you've got walleye, salmon, you've got all kinds of different fishes just biting away. And I mean, you've got something on your line as soon as you drop it. It is that fast and furious. The dangers of it is if you get caught up in a like a whirlwind there, whirlpool or
undercurrents. Yeah,
the undercurrents. It shifts the boat, and if you don't have a real good bite or a real good firm hold on the boat with your feet, you could go over.
Oh.
So it can be dangerous, very dangerous, and usually you do that in the dark. you're fishing up there in the dark,
Oh.
and because that's the best time to catch them. And it's a lot of times you can't see what's going on, so it can be dangerous that way. But it was a lot of fun because them walleyes are really good eating.
Now this particular line is spool, we call it, is 6 pound. I like to use 4 pound, 6 pound at the most. And that's why it's in my tackle box, because if I have problems and I've got to redo my rod, or my reel, excuse me, then I'd put this monofilament fishing line on my reel.
Well, we're gonna have another little guest come in here. We're gonna have my grandson come in. Brock, would you like to come in on the set? We'd like to introduce Brock. This is Brock Beardall. This is Trent and Kathleen's boy. This is our grandson. He's 7 years old. Have you ever been fishing, bud?
No.
Now, would you be interested in this this urban fishing program that, remember, I introduced earlier in the program? Would you be interested in that? Okay. And now that you've been here in the studio and you've watched Daryl show you how to put a night crawler on a hook, you'll be able to do that, right? Right? Now, you started, did you start at this age, Daryl?
Yeah, how old are you, Brock?
7.
7? I think I was probably about that age. I'm pretty sure I was about 7, 8 years old when my dad was taking us out. So.
Now, you said you didn't have much interest at first?
No, not at first, because I didn't like the rides up there.
Oh, the rides.
The rides was too far.
Okay.
I didn't have a whole lot of patience. I still don't. But yeah, it's.
So if Brocky gets up there to this, up to Canyon View, and throws out his first cast,
I think Brock would enjoy it. In fact, I think he would enjoy it for life, because it's such a wonderful experience to be with your dad or with your brother or sisters, and you're out there enjoying the outdoors, and you're catching fish, and you're learning how to bait hooks, and you're learning how to cast, and you're learning how to reel, and you're just learning all the aspects of fishing, and it's intriguing, and it's new to a child, and most of the times they take a strong interest in it and want it to be a hobby for them.
Okay, you mentioned the word hobby.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what it is to you?
Oh yeah, it's definitely a hobby. You know, there's people who love to hunt. There's people who love to ride four-wheelers. There's people who love to camp. I like to fish. That's what I like to do.
Now, the gal over that I talked to the other day said that her husband goes fishing because it's a great stress reliever.
Oh yeah.
Does it do that for you too?
Yeah, it does. But more importantly, I think it's just being up there in the mountains with your family, and being with your children, and just having everybody be a part of that experience of being outdoors and being in the mountains, and listening to the different birds sing, and
Looking at
watch.
the honkers, right?
Yeah.
Would we see any honkers out fishing?
Well, it depends on where you go. I've seen them flying over the top sometimes, up in the
Yeah.
air, flying to different lands to go eat, but usually you don't see them out there where you're fishing.
Alrighty. Now, so if you and I and Brocky went fishing right after the show and never got a nibble, is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. But if there's fish in there, we're gonna catch some, because we'll fix the rod up and the reel, fix it up the way it's the way they would be biting, Because if they're not biting on worms, they could be biting on float bait, they could be biting on fireballs, lures, red devils. I mean, they could anything. I mean, they're gonna hit something.
Okay.
Flies, I have some flies in there.
Because I know when we go to the ballpark and we get 3 ABs, 3 at bats during the game, and we come up 0 for 3 or 0 for 4, I didn't have that much fun. So if we go 0 for at the fishing pond, not that much fun.
But you know what, Goose? That's the beauty of baseball and fishing, because there's always tomorrow. You always get tomorrow to get a base hit, another base hit, and you always get tomorrow. You can always go fishing again the next day and possibly catch fish. So there's always 3 things you don't worry about in baseball, and I practice the same thing in fishing. Don't forget about last year, forget about yesterday, and forget about your last
At bat?
at bat, last
Okay.
reel.
All right, that's good advice. That's really good advice. Now, in our footage, we had you showing the guy, telling the viewers about the different rods and the different reels. Let's go to that right now.
Goose, this rod here that I've got is basically, it's fiberglass, made out of fiberglass. It's about 5.5 feet in length, which I like because it's easy to handle. It's light, where I can feel the fish better with it. There are different kinds of poles out there. You have bigger poles that possibly can handle 8 to 14 pound test lines. You've got littler poles that could handle 4 to 10 pound test line.
Now, does that mean I can catch a 4 to a 10 pound fish and it won't break?
That's a good question, Goose. No, it just means that pole, the kind of action that pole is going to give you is better action between the 4 and 10 pound test line. You can catch a 12 to 14 pound fish with that type of fishing pole.
Okay.
It's no problem.
Okay.
They just recommend the pole that you buy, they recommend that use that pound test line.
Okay, now what about the reel, Daryl?
The reel, this particular reel here, is a Quantum Viper. Now, it's an open cast reel. There's 2 kinds of reels. You got your open cast, and then you have your closed cast. Now, this particular reel, as I said, is an open cast. I like it a little better. It seems to cast farther and more consistent, less problems with getting tangled. And
That's what happened to me when I go fishing. I ended up getting it tangled most of the time, and so it took the fun out of fishing for me.
yeah, because you're spending all your time fixing your fishing pole, fixing your reel, messing with your reel,
Getting the hook out of the bushes.
getting the hook out of the bushes, fighting in the water with, you know, you're caught between rocks or a lump down in there, and
Okay.
you know, and that's when fishing becomes agonizing and just frustrating.
Becomes work.
Yeah, because you're not having any fun. All you do is you're fixing your fishing pole the whole time.
All right.
But on this open cast, for you viewers out there, there's certain ways you can cast this. I like to just take the line and butt it up against this arm right here. Then you go ahead and flip your cover here, and then you just throw it. And as you throw, you're going to let go of your finger, and it becomes natural for you after you've cast it a few times. You'll get the feel of when to let go, and actually you're going to get to be a pro at casting. It's very easy once you do it a few times.
Okay, so in a few minutes after we get the hook on, we're gonna have you do a little bit of casting for the folks. Okay.
Okay, I can do that.
I know I learned a lot from that footage. Is there anything after we've looked at it that you would add to that about the rods and the reels for our viewers?
Just that if, like Brock, okay, if you're just starting out fishing, you really want to go to a closed cast reel, simply because it's a lot easier to maneuver and it's a lot easier to cast. There's only one little button that you have to worry about. It doesn't get tangled as much, and it's easier to reel in and to maneuver. So that would be my suggestion, because open.
Because I know right there you've got the open
Yes,
face.
this is an open cast, and it's a lot harder for
Youngsters?
and fishermen who are just starting to use, because there's a little difference between this and your closed cast reel. On this particular reel, what I normally do is I'll take the line here and butt it up against my handle here, and then you
Release
open
it.
that's why it's called an open cast. So you
Gotcha.
open it up, okay, and then all you're going to do is you're going to take it back, and when you release it, you just let go with your finger.
Oh.
And that's how it works. Now, the difference here in the closed cast is the closed cast, you're just going to go ahead and start reeling. With this one, the open cast, you've got to click it back before you start reeling, and then you start to reel. So the closed cast is it's easier to use, and the open cast, it's a little difficult for you if you're just starting to learn how to cast. So I would suggest, if you're just starting out, for you youngsters out there, to use a closed cast reel, and possibly use maybe a littler reel rod, excuse me, maybe something under 5 feet. This rod here is about 5.5 feet long. It's about what I like to use, but there are 6 foot, even bigger reels out there.
Alrighty.
Rods, excuse me, and so.
Now I know in baseball, the stick that you're using, a lot of these youngsters like to use the longest bat they can get with the biggest barrel because it looks cool. Not so, because we're all talking about bat speed, aren't we?
Mhm.
Getting the bat through the zone.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying here, right?
Well, in fishing, the bigger the line is, or the heavier the line is works against you. Especially if you're just fishing for trout or bluegill or perch or anything that is your smaller fish, pan-sized fish, because they can see the line. And usually what I use is 4-pound test line, or I'll use 6-pound test line. I have 4-pound on here now. Just because it says 4 pounds doesn't mean that you can only catch up to a 4-pound fish. You could actually catch twice the size, up to 8 pounds. But the 4 pounds means that it's littler, that it's lighter, and it's not as easy for the fish to see and detect. So I suggest that you use 4-pound, 6-pound test line as opposed to 8, 10, 12-pound test line. Plus, when you're reeling it in, when you're tightening up your line after you've thrown it out, the heavier line coils more than the lighter line. So I would suggest lighter line.
Okay, you want me to cast, right?
Yep, I want you to show our viewing
Okay.
audience some casting techniques.
Okay. As I mentioned earlier, I like to take the line, put it into the arm. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I just come back here and I get a pretty good cast on that. Now what you do is you want to tighten your line up. So you give the bubble time to drop to the bottom, because I'm fishing off the bottom with my heavy bubble. And you can see your line start to drop into the water. When you see that, then you want to start tightening up your line.
until you get it where there's no loops in it. So you want it to be tight. Once I get it tight, then I go ahead and set it down and rest it. And if it starts to get looser, then you can go ahead and tighten it even more until you feel comfortable where you're at. Right there is about where I would be if I was fishing.
Okay, now what about the wrist action, Daryl? I know when all good hitters have them good wrists.
Yes.
Not too snug, not choked back in here in the hand, but out the fingertips. What about the hand grip on a rod?
Well, it's a good question, Goose, because as I said earlier in the show, casting can be easy once you get a knack for it. And it takes time, just like hitting. Hitting just isn't just easy. It takes time when you're doing anything. But what I've learned is you do flick the wrist, but the most important thing is your finger on the line. Because if you let go too soon, your line goes up there and it could go in the trees.
Okay.
You get tangled up. If you let go too late, your line goes straight down into the lake. You lose your bait. It goes flying out into the lake, and the fish are saying, thank you very much for the free food.
Okay.
So there is a technique, Goose, with the wrist, and I've learned to let go at 12 o'clock.
12 o'clock.
12 o'clock, a little more on that side of 12 o'clock.
All right, about 1?
Well, probably 1 o'clock.
All right.
And you usually get a good, consistent cast if you can go by that. Just let go of the finger at 12 o'clock.
Okay, now for you young viewers, you're probably wondering, what does he mean by 12 o'clock? Well, if you take a clock, the number 12 is right at the top. He said a little more than 12 o'clock, so that would make it 1. So about right there is the release point. I think that's really educational. I didn't know that. Now, Daryl,
Yes,
come
Goose.
up in here. I notice we got a lot of bugs out here today. Bugs, gnats. I know they could ruin our outing in a quick hurry. I know yellow jackets and bees do at a picnic. So a fishing trip, what do we do about these stinking bugs?
Well, usually, you could carry bug repellent. Usually I just spray off on me and that keeps the bugs away. But for you young viewers and some of you guys and gals out there that haven't experienced this before, when you spray the off on you, make sure you keep it away from your hands, that you're going to be messing with the bait and you're going to be touching the bait. Because if you get that smell of that off on your float bait or your night crawler or your salmon eggs or your minnows, whatever you're using, them fish can smell that and they know that that's not something that they want to eat. So if you are going to use bug repellent, be very careful and don't put it on your hands, because it's going to get on the bait and you're not going to have very much success.
Beautiful, beautiful tip. I didn't know that. Okay, we're going to take another break right here, and we'll be back for, I think we're just about ready to wind our show up. We got a couple of last little tidbits we want to share with you. Don't touch that remote. We'll be back in a moment. We haven't tackled this, and no pun intended, we haven't tackled this. What about fishing gear? Is it expensive? What happens like Lexi over there? How old is she?
She's 10.
10. How does a 10-year-old girl or boy get started fishing if they don't have a lot of dough?
Well, that's a good question. And for you viewers out there, fishing can be inexpensive. You don't have to go out there and buy the most expensive rod, the most expensive reel. the most expensive, excuse me, line and lures, and fishing can be moderately cheap. And for someone like Lexi or younger, there's Mickey Mouse fishing poles, Donald Duck fishing poles and reels. There's all the characters that are out there for $10, $11, and you get the line, and you get that closed cast that I was talking about.
Right.
The easier for the younger, inexperienced fishermen. It comes all together already so that they can enjoy fishing, and it's like I said, it's only around $10, $11 for that particular rod and reel. If you wanted to go to one of these rod and reels, you're only going to spend about $25, $30 for the rod, and for the reel, anywhere from $15 to $25 probably, depending on the make and model of that reel. So fishing isn't real expensive. Now a fishing license is going to cost, I believe it's $35, and that's for a year. So fishing is moderately cheap.
Now I know to go out hunting for your first time, you got to take hunter's safety. Do you have to take fisherman's safety?
No, there's no requirement to take fisherman's safety. I think if you're teaching your children how to fish, it's a wonderful experience.
I think we're going to have your daughter come in here now. Lex, come in here and sit down by your dad. We've been talking about his daughter most of the program. Nice looking gal, good gal, and so you think she wouldn't have to take any fisherman's safety course?
Nope. All she's going to do is she's going to go with me this year, this summer. We're going to take her up to Payson, and well, we might even take her down to Schofield or wherever we decide to go, and I'm going to teach her how to fish. She's going to learn how to fish. She's going to learn how to bait. She's going to learn how to clean a fish.
Now, let's ask her, do you have a problem with putting the slimy worm on the hook?
No.
What about cleaning the fish?
It depends.
Depends. But you're looking forward to it?
Yeah.
Okay. So she's 10 years old, folks, and looking forward to going fishing for her first time?
Actually, she went with us last year when we went, but she didn't do any fishing. All the kids went running around the lake and out picking up sticks and rocks and doing kid things. But she said that this year she wants to learn how to fish, and I said, well, let's do it then.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, beautiful. One of my gals the other day, she wanted to make sure that I asked you how to, do you have a simple recipe for fish? A
simple recipe?
Yep, because she really doesn't like fish that much, but if she could come up with a simple recipe from you, she might acquire a taste for fish.
Okay. Well, I could give her a couple of recipes. What I usually like to do is you can fillet your trout. You could even just cook them whole.
And that's your fillet knife, right?
Yeah, I have a fillet knife in here that I use. But how I cook my trout is I'll wrap them up in tin foil. I'll put them in tin foil. I'll put lemon pepper over them. I'll put seasonings, different types of seasonings that I use. I'll put butter in there, and I'll put lemon wedges on top, and some extra virgin olive oil in there. Then I'll wrap it up and I'll put it on the barbecuer.
Oh.
And do it that way.
What are we wrapping it in? Tin foil?
Tin foil, yes.
Okay.
And it just comes out. Now you don't want to overcook it. You just want to cook it 2 or 3 minutes on each side.
We want the fish flaky.
Well, yeah, you want it moist.
All right.
But you don't want to overcook fish. It's a lot like shrimp. You overcook it, it becomes tough and dry. So less is better when you're barbecuing fish. And it just gives that flavor is just unreal. Especially your pink meat trout or your cutthroats or your salmon's even good. I've done it. I cook it that way a lot, or I'll pan fry it with some flour.
Beautiful. So that goes out to our young lady that needed a simple little recipe for fish. I know I like fish. I love fish.
That's why I fish, because I love to cook it. I love to eat fish, and I've given fish. I catch sometimes I'll catch so many I'll give them to my neighbors and give them away to people who like to eat fish.
Brocky, do you like fish? Good. All right, you wouldn't be a beer doll if you didn't like fish, huh?
A little guess. You need to kind of take a guess where we filmed our second show. Be interesting. I think you'll find it kind of interesting where we're at today. The sun is almost on the top of the horizon there. And if I can get my wife just to kind of pan around. Look at that. It's almost like silk, and you can see the bugs on top. We can hear the birds singing. Spring is on its way. We're sitting up here with good people. What more could you ask for? The only thing more you could ask for is Daryl to have one of those cutthroat on the end of that hook, baby, right?
That's right.
Beautiful, Daryl. I like that. I think it was educational. I think it was very informative. The whole show. I learned a lot, and we appreciate you being here. We appreciate Brocky being here, and we appreciate Bryce being behind the camera, because without him, we have no show. And we're going to sign off like we do our program up at school. I got a little 7-minute program I do every Thursday at school, and we're going to sign off on this show the same way. Have a great day, and remember, we love you.
Thanks, Goose.
Okay.